Let's examine Martin Heidegger's proposal about the homeland, that any human life requires a homeland. First, let's look at two quotes from our readings. The first quote is from the 1934 newspaper article on page 17. Martin Heidegger writing, "The inner relationship of my own work to the Black Forest and its people comes from a centuries-long and irreplaceable rootedness in the Alemannian Swabian soil." And let's also look at the very start of the 1955 lecture or speech. On page 43, Martin Heidegger writing, "I thank my homeland for all that it has given me along the path of my life." It's worth noting that some of our previous authors have elements of the homeland in their biographies or in their philosophy. Plato's Socrates, for example, was always loyal to Athens and never left the city of Athens except to go on military campaigns. And Socrates refers to this in the Apology. Aquinas in the Summa Theologicae uses the term homeland. So this term isn't an invention of Heidegger's. It has a history in Europe going back at least to the medieval ages. For Aquinas, the homeland isn't on earth, it is the world and life to come. Henry Thoreau is loyal to the New England homeland, and in some of his other writings he asserts that it's possible to find happiness here in New England rather than going across the earth in order to earn wealth in order to retire. And Louisa May Alcott is also dedicated to her merry town of Concord, Massachusetts. These are examples of our authors showing a commitment to what Heidegger calls the homeland. Let's first review the elements of Martin Heidegger's homeland as given in our readings. We'll hear a definition of homeland and review Martin Heidegger's insights about the homeland and humanity. First, Martin Heidegger's homeland. Martin Heidegger refers to his homeland as the Black Forest, and that for him includes the landscape, the mountains, the forest, the farmland, and also the people, who he refers to in 1934 as peasants. We would refer to these people as the country folk living out in the farmland, running farms, herding livestock. Martin Heidegger indicates his homeland contains towns and villages, not cities. And these small towns and villages nonetheless also have accomplished persons like the composer that's being celebrated in 1955, a famous composer of hymns. According to Martin Heidegger, work is an important part of belonging to the homeland, and our author tells us in 1934 that he knows about his homeland. He discovers his homeland by way of his work, and according to our author, his work as a philosopher belongs alongside the logging of the landowners and the herding of livestock by the farmers. Martin Heidegger refers to history, tradition, customs, conventions, and language as all coming from his homeland. Let's hear a proposed definition of homeland. For Martin Heidegger, homeland is an area of shared life, nurturing individual lives with things like customs and language, in short, areas of personal identity. I think it's fair to say that the homeland is a shared past, and it is something in contrast to what Pope St. John called the common good. The common good is also an area of shared life. The common good requires a government, says Pope St. John. However, the homeland is something that's conducted by the people. So the homeland is perhaps an alternative to the common good. And Martin Heidegger's main claim in 1955 is that all human persons and lives require a homeland in order to flourish. In short, good life requires the homeland. And his second observation is that in the 20th century, people are losing their homeland. Let's hear Martin Heidegger talking about the loss of homeland. This is on page 48 of the memorial address. Martin Heidegger writing, "Many Germans have lost their homeland, have had to leave their villages and towns, have been driven from their native soil. Countless others whose homeland was saved have yet wandered off. They have been caught up in the turmoil of the big cities and have resettled in the wastelands of industrial districts. They are strangers now to their former homeland, and those who have stayed on in their homeland. Often, they are still more homeless than those who have been driven from their homeland. Hourly and daily, they are chained to radio and television." Let's now review Martin Heidegger's insights given in the two documents about the homeland. First, the most important insight, that all humanity requires a homeland. And we can sum up that importance in terms of personal identity. The homeland contributes many areas of personal identity and ethnicity. In addition, the homeland is something that we belong to. It's something that provides resources that we can return to again and again, according to Heidegger. According to Martin Heidegger, there are diverse homelands. This is stated in 1955. He states that there are several other homelands in the area of Germany, and this presumably includes the whole earth, that throughout the earth there are numerous different homelands that we might belong to. Rootedness is our author's term for belonging to my homeland. And in 1934, he states that work is the primary way in which I belong to my homeland. And the second way in which I belong to my homeland is by practicing meditative thinking. And meditative thinking is the other important idea that's given in 1955 in the speech before Messkirch. According to Martin Heidegger, some persons attempt to reforge their relationship to their homeland by touring their homeland, by studying the history of their homeland. However, these approaches won't establish a genuine belonging to the homeland, says Martin Heidegger. In order to belong to my homeland, I first must discover my homeland, and for our author, meditative thinking, or what he calls meditative thinking, is the intellectual activity by which I can discover my homeland. Meditative thinking is a virtuous intellectual activity for Martin Heidegger, though he doesn't use virtue concepts like our other authors. It is a kind of careful, patient thinking in which I think about unobservable truths that are near to me, says Martin Heidegger. Martin Heidegger's proposal is that by practicing meditative thinking, we can rebuild our relationship to the lost homeland.